it. I'm at the cabin.
Finally,
Finally,
briefly.
briefly.
It's going to be a bit of a gong show summer.
It is. I'm not going to have much time here at all.
I don't think any of us are. We're back and forth a fair amount. But that's fine. None of our toys are working right now. So
Yeah.
side by side has a flat tire.
Does it actually?
No, I think it's okay, but it had a flat tire before I pulled it out. So I think I fixed it. Just gotta, it's fine. It's fine.
Nothing works. I guess that's what we get for secondhand.
That's brand new.
Well, that is, but everything else is secondhand.
Things break. Toys break.
Yeah,
Look at our friends that have very nice, expensive boats that have been in the shop way more than ours.
that's true.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So,
Or a few $1,000 toys. Different, yeah, from hundreds of thousands of dollars of toys.
so
Yeah.
yeah, and we're getting thunderstorms
Beautiful.
soon.
So the dogs will be. Terry, it's good to see you. I haven't seen you in ages either.
Yeah, it's good to see you too
For a day.
for a day. I'll be back in a day.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
And I've been away. Drove to all the way from Calgary to Vancouver Island, which is 14 hours, including a ferry ride.
Mm-hmm.
And my 15-year-old helped drive me part of the way, which was good.
That makes it sound like you're incapacitated.
No, she helped drive me. I drove the Coca-Cola.
Yeah, which is rough.
But she was like, this is actually, but I think the Hope Highway is actually worse.
Yeah,
She drove the Hope Highway home.
it's a tough one.
But it's good. And there's lots of times where she's like, I'm scared. I'm scared. I can't do this. I don't want to drive. But I want her with us driving, And so, and then even here to the cabin, I drove like the part that I knew she might need to be driving herself. I made her drive.
Yeah.
Just to raise that confidence. And she did say at the end, I'm glad that you had me. Like, I'm going to be way more confident. I'm going to be set for my driver's license and I'm going to be way more confident. Because she's got friends who've had their learners longer than her and who haven't driven more than like a couple of blocks.
Which is crazy.
I know.
Yeah, she's driven all over Western Canada now. She's driven more than her sister did at this point.
Yeah. But it's important because their prefrontal cortex, judgment, and thinking through, like it does not fully develop until closer to 30s. And so these young drivers, I mean, it's dangerous being on the road. It really is. And so the more, and we did have her driving young, like on back roads or things like that, or the side by side with us, just to start developing some good judgment and.
Well, just even figuring out what it feels like.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not a shock.
And muscle memory, like if you don't know, like, yeah, it's just everything. So it's important.
It is. And you're back.
And we're back. No crashes.
Amazing. Yeah. I'm more amazed that there's no tickets.
I know.
Not because of her.
No, I know.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, she did good. She was passing cars on single lane highways. She was passing. There's a couple where she was not looking and pulled out and there was a car right there.
You only have to learn that lesson once. Either you correct it or you only lose. That's their last lesson you learn.
Yeah. But she was most shook up from that one.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. And that was actually right before we got here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. She's like, I'm done. Like, well, you got to keep going. Like, you can't just stop if you're driving by yourself. You can't just stop. But anyway, anywho.
Yeah. Well, welcome to the cabin series.
I don't know what the sound's going to be like in here. It's not
going to be rustic, like we're at the cabin in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, you don't like the outdoors, the great outdoors. The bigger concern is more of the dog's going to interrupt as usual.
Right.
Your one favorite dog in particular. Oh, she's curled up right now.
They smell so bad. And I've confirmed today, I never thought it was skunk, but every year everyone's like, it's skunk, it's skunk. It is not skunk. I saw exactly the source of their stink.
I think one year it was, but I don't think it's been every year.
Well, this particular smell every year, I'm like, it's not, but.
2 years ago, I think it was for sure because that was the one where every time she got wet, she reeked for like 8 months.
Yeah.
It was awful. But yeah, they stink. They ruin our vinyl floor.
Like one day at the cabin and they're.
And it's good stuff.
Reeking.
Yeah.
Anyway.
This is why we don't have nice things.
Yep. One day we'll have nice things.
Yeah, when the dogs are dead. And I don't want that to be soon. And the kids have moved out. And I don't want that to be soon.
Jamie and PJ are friends of ours from university. And they're empty nesters. So happy. Like,
Yeah, because the
so
costs are
happy.
probably.
The house is awesome and they can just, yeah, they're not, every minute isn't for the kids. They definitely miss the kids, but
Yeah, no, I get it. I absolutely get it.
well, I think I've talked about that curve where like happiness, if you look at marriage, so time, so happiness on the y-axis and time on the x-axis, and happy is high when you first get married, drops to almost zero when you have kids, and it raises up again to pre-kids once they move out.
Do you know why? Because I can equate it. It's like the high of doing crime before you get arrested, then you go to prison, and then you're in prison for an indefinite amount of time, and then you're released, and the world is new, and you're free. That's why.
And stuff, you put it away, you put a chocolate bar away,
It's still there.
it's still there when you come back for another piece, another day.
I get it.
You clean a kitchen, you come back the next morning, it's still clean.
Hmm. I 100% get it. I'm still looking forward to that day.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing. Yeah, it'll be good.
So, what are we talking about today?
So today, I'm not. So this is when I came across. This is a big someone you're a big fan of, Brené Brown. I came across a clip from her. You've probably already seen it because I think you've probably seen everything she's done. But we've talked about language. We've talked about terminology and overusage of some. And this isn't an exercise in that. But she said something that it was really interesting, where she was on a podcast with Trevor Noah, and she was talking about how
And who's Trevor Noah?
Trevor Noah is the comedian who was the former host of The Daily Show.
Okay.
South African dude, really smart, really funny, and he has a podcast now.
Okay.
He left The Daily Show and he does a podcast now. And he brings on these really interesting guests, and one of them was Brené Brown. And we can put a clip of the short in here so people can see what I'm talking, the actual clip, because I'll probably get it a bit wrong. But the quote or the conversation they were having was around how she deliberately taught her kids that when someone apologizes, not to say it's okay or no worries. And I'm someone that says that all the time. No worries, it's fine, don't worry about it. Never really thought about it. But what was really interesting about this was she's like, we taught our kids instead, if someone comes and says, I apologize, you thank them and then you move on. And Trevor kind of did the same reaction to me, which was like, okay, why? And her response was very interesting, where she's like, it's not my job to make you feel better. What you did wasn't okay. It was an offense. So why should I let you off the hook? I don't need to dwell on it, is essentially what she's saying. But the language in this situation is important, and it kind of stretches beyond just the situation. But I found it really interesting because when she practiced it, like when she demonstrated it, I'm like, oh yeah, the difference is really, really interesting. Because, and this gets to the topic that I want to talk about today, which is there's a lot of terminology around there about things you can't say or labels you can't use. And I think a lot of that is overused, and kids are taught things that make it more stressful. But when is it important to think about the language you use in terms of framing for kids in a particular manner to help them both be respectful but also manage their own kind of situation and whatever is happening? Does that make sense?
No.
Okay.
So framing like in what?
So the way
Like
she
in any
did,
situation?
yeah, like in your thought, like the way she said it, right? Instead of saying it's okay or no worries, in changing it to thanks, I appreciate it, or thank you, and moving on. How significant is that, and how can you teach your kids to do stuff like that in other areas of relationships?
Okay,
Like,
so
that's the
not just
question.
apologizing.
Yeah, not just apologizing, but when is it important to kind of look at the frame, like when I'm saying framing, the framing of how kids are speaking or interacting with people.
So there's a few things that come to mind in thinking of different things outside of apologizing, but the biggest one is just how do we work together? You know, if there's a problem to solve, how do we work together towards that? I do like what she was saying, and yes, I have heard that before, just in terms of taking, like, part of it is accountability, and it's not our fault. Sometimes it is okay and not that big of a deal, but usually we still do feel a little bit. But being able to work together, you know, this is the problem. It's starting with I statements. It's not blaming you. And we hear that all the time. You're making me so mad. Parents will say that to kids, and kids will start using that language too. You're making me so mad.
Yeah.
nobody else can make us. We are responsible for how we're interpreting and perceiving and responding to the situation. People might be doing things that we don't like. So being able to come from an I place, an I statement, and then what is the problem? So let's just say, kids not doing their chores, for example. That's a
Right.
common one, right? Instead of saying, I have to tell you every time, and we're getting mad at them and, we're just getting them defensive. It's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to turn into a fight. They might follow through with the chores, but they're going to be miserable and angry for the rest of the night. Same thing, with partners
Yeah.
or colleagues or anything. If you go in blaming and you need to do this. So being able to say, I statements, this is the problem. So I'm feeling really frustrated because I spent my whole night cleaning the kitchen. And then I come back and there's dishes everywhere and there's a mess everywhere and the dishes weren't put away. So I'm just wondering about how we can work together to solve this problem so that we can start collaborating, right?
Right.
And being able to come up with different ideas. So let's brainstorm some different ideas that we can manage this, right? And let's write it down, especially with kids. That can be helpful. Let's write down all of our ideas and we're going to write all of them down, even if they say something that there's no way in a million years that we're going to do it. Like, I never have to do chores again. Okay, let's write that down. But then we can say that too. You have to do all of the chores every day before you go to school. You have to do chores.
Right.
And I'm not doing any, you're right. So then when we start crossing off ideas, they can cross off our ridiculous ones that they don't like, but we can cross off ones we don't like. But we want to make sure we're writing them down because if we don't, we're like, hey, dude, be serious. The minute we start shutting down their ideas, they're not going to participate. They're just going to think that you're trying to force them to do something anyways,
And
right?
shut it down entirely.
And shutting it down. So then we can brainstorm and let's just try it for 3 days, right? Maybe it is okay. Like I'll put the dishes away before I go to school. Okay, let's try that. It's Monday. Let's try it till Thursday and see how it goes, right? And
Right.
see if it works out and what we need to tweak. And so that's an example. And I find that that works in pretty much any situation, right? If we frame and kids can take that, I'm feeling really frustrated when you keep picking up the soccer ball
Yeah.
in the middle of our soccer game. So what can we do?
Right.
Right. And because the other kid will have, so it's being able to listen and really listen. And I would say more than a script or a framework, it's teaching kids to really listen and understand what that person is saying because
Right.
I think we as a species get so defensive all of the time and nobody's actually listening to each other.
100%.
And that's one thing that I find in counseling. People are just, they release and they're so relieved because it's the first time that someone's actually listening to them without throwing in a yeah, but without trying to fix it or make them feel better, like just being there and listening. I would say that more than a framework, just listening. But, anyways, I rambled on. I don't know if you had other thoughts.
Yeah, no, I think it's interesting because you're right. There is a component where, and we get this like this from time to time when we're frustrated as well, where you just want to get whatever it is that's aggravating you or annoying you to stop, right? So I think for me, that's a good reminder to try and just remember, you know, that the other person doesn't have access to what you're thinking or feeling at that point in time. So you coming at them and being upset is you said it earlier, it's just going to make them defensive. So I think that's an important component of that in terms of just remembering kind of how to start the conversation in a more proactive way without making it, you know, all about you or whatever. Now, I think that the trick with that is you got to be prepared that, with the brainstorming, you might not get the outcome that you'd initially had hoped for, right?
Well, you got to go in with an open mind. Like
Yeah.
the outcome's got to be a win-win. And you shouldn't go in thinking you know what the outcome is.
Right.
Because that's going to be the end of your because then you're just trying to control the other person. And we do not have any control over the other person.
Yeah.
Right? We got to get them bought in to changing. But the only way to do that is if they have a win as well, right? It's got to be win-win.
Yeah. They're not just giving everything up.
And if they feel heard, they're way more willing and more likely to
Yeah. Fair enough.
try to.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I guess with that, in terms of kind of the original example with Brene Brown, I guess the other component, other than reframing, that it kind of made me started thinking about as well is what are not traps, but what are some other things that potentially parents need to kind of, and I don't know if I'm going to word this right, need to kind of be paying attention to about how they're teaching their kids to frame interactions like that, in the sense that, the example she gave in terms of someone coming and apologizing, you don't have to make them feel better about it. You don't have to say no worries or whatever. You can say thanks, I appreciate it, and move on. Are there other examples, or have you come across other examples where typically parents kind of ingrain that deflective or that dismissive behavior in their kids? Is that something that happens or you need to watch for?
I think we model a lot of that. I really think it comes through our own interactions and even things like people pleasing,
Mhm.
So I do have a lot of parents who are like, I'm so worried that my kids are never putting other people, or the flip side, right?
Right.
That they're taking control of everything. But we see that a lot. And it usually comes from interactions with kids where we are trying to control. We're always saying, no, kids never get their way. They're never heard.
Right.
And, power struggles are always, so never having a chance to be heard and to say no themselves without us coming down and, dominating over them, that's what creates people pleasers as
Right.
well. So, and maybe we're modeling people pleasing, right? Like we'll say, yeah, sure, I'll bake all of the cookies for the bake sale. And then we're complaining about it because we have all these other hundreds of things and kids
Yeah.
are seeing that. So I think a lot of it is the modeling, whether we have to sit our kids down. I mean, this kind of ties back to a previous episode where I was talking about how we don't teach our kids
Yeah.
anymore, like the people skills and how to be a good person, which we do need to. So I think a lot of this is good, but a lot of it really does come from our
Yeah. Just
modeling.
yeah, them watching us.
And one of the biggest things that I think of more than like apologizing, okay, but on the grand spectrum of things, I think that that's not as important of a topic as it as saying hello to people when you pass them on the sidewalk, waving to your neighbors, being friendly,
Hmm.
you know, saying thank you to the cashier as you're getting your groceries. Like there's just those small little acts of kindness that I think on the is probably a bigger thing I would sort of focus on if I was going to start teaching lessons and intentionally modeling.
Hmm.
So I think it comes down to, like what are just pay attention in a week. What are daily regular interactions? There are going to be those apologies. That's a one-off, but day to day, how do you be a good person?
Yeah.
How do you, and make other people feel like good people or that that's for me, I think a bigger issue.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point, right? In terms of we always talk about modeling, but I think, yeah, that's a distinct point in what are the things that you can show kids. And I think a lot of what you're saying though comes down to a general awareness. Like a lot of those social pieces that aren't happening now is because people are really self-absorbed. Well, not self-absorbed. They're either completely kind of focused on their own thing or they're focused on their phones, right? And we always come back to phones. But so you lose that awareness that things are even happening around you. And in some situations, it almost startles you when that interaction happens and you don't know how to respond to it because you weren't expecting it, because you weren't paying attention and you weren't really present. And I think that's an important kind of distinction as well as a parent is just, you know, be aware of what's happening around you so you can actually have those interactions, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times.
And just going back to the sorry example, like there's a couple of pieces there that I think are important to really think about. One is we want our kids to feel guilt.
Mhm.
We don't want to absolve them of guilt. So being the apologizer, I think it's great that the other person isn't trying to make them feel better because that's the trap that we're falling into. And we've talked about this before. We're always trying to make kids feel better. And we need to have guilt. They're not going to learn from their behavior. If they think that they can just say that and then apologize and all of your sins are gone,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Like
You don't have to change your behavior because you got away with it,
yeah.
right?
So I think there's that piece, but then knowing if you are the apologizer, because I do know, I do see people, but are you sure? Like, is it okay? It's okay. It's like, and then it just gets
Yeah.
annoying. It's not about you apologizing. It's not about the other person forgiving you or to make you feel better.
Right.
That's, I guess, what I'm trying to say. It's not about you feeling better. It's about them receiving your apology genuinely.
Right.
Like that's what an apology really should do. And I know we had an episode before on should we make kids say sorry to other kids? Not if it's just an empty sorry.
Yeah.
And now like the one person saying sorry is just more pissed off and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It
'Cause
got a
people can
bigger
tell when it's fake.
yeah, like, so it's got to be genuine. And I want you to feel guilt and I want you to feel heartbroken so that you can actually really show your apology, not for forgiveness, but to make the other person feel better,
Yeah.
right? To make the other person feel understood or loved or whatever it is that they need in that moment. And I find words don't do it. Like, I'm sorry is just so empty, it's
Yeah.
superficial,
Yeah.
right? There's probably, and that's what parents can model, I think can be really helpful is because I've seen where I've actually literally seen where kids will come apologize and another kid might just say, okay,
Yeah.
or thanks. And then the parent of the kid who's apologizing was like, well, I guess someone's not very grateful or something
Yeah.
like
Like they should be happy that they were given the apology.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's a terrible lesson too. So it's really about like, yeah, it's not about that, but we can be showing what are other ways that we can apologize,
Sure.
and maybe like with our kids, it might be through a hug. We might have words, but it's not just I'm sorry, right? There's probably more to that. That's not how I wanted to respond in that moment, and that wasn't fair to you. But I would pair that with connection, with an action, a hug. But usually, if they're annoyed, they don't want a hug. But it could be a little note under their door. It could be like some token that you're doing.
Yeah.
Like I think that that's important
And
too.
it's interesting you say that because in the example, and like I said, we can share it. We can share the clip in particular. She, so she has an example of how she apologized to her kid. And she does that. She's like, look, buddy, like I wanted to apologize for how I acted the other day. Like I wasn't in the best headspace and I kind of overreacted. And she kind of explained why. And she said, I'm sorry. And she was jokingly upset because her kid gave back to her what she had taught, which was, thank you. I appreciate that. And she was like, you're so grounded. Like, how dare you speak to me like that? But it talks to what you're talking about in terms of the person apologizing needs to be okay that the apology is you don't get anything back other than you give it to them. But also, yeah, that explanation is, to give more than just I'm sorry, to be like, hey, this is where I'm at. This is why I did it. I'm so sorry. And then that's the end of the transaction, right?
Mhm.
The flip side of it that I think is interesting as well is I think a lot of times the reason why people say that's okay or no worries or whatever it is to dismiss it is they're uncomfortable
Exactly.
revisiting it,
Yeah.
first of all, but they're also uncomfortable with the confrontation, right? Because they see them not saying that's okay or their forgiveness piece as an act of confrontation. And it's not. It's literally just if you teach them that it's a point of closure, and by saying, thank you, I appreciate it, and move on, there's no fight, there's no further confrontation. You've heard them, you said, I appreciate it, you can move on. But that's a societal piece that I think some people are really uncomfortable with as well, is that by not giving the apologizer what they think they need to give in terms of that forgiveness, you're creating a bigger problem. And you just said it with how the parents react, right? It's the same thing. So
Yeah.
I think both sides of the coin, there's a lesson in the approach that's important for them to both understand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Sorry, this took so long.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. See how easy it is?
All righty.
All righty.